Once upon a time, in a picturesque African village, there lived a young man named Kofi. Being the sole son of the king made him unique, as it meant he would one day inherit the throne. Kofi was thrilled by the prospect of becoming king and frequently fantasized about it. As a child, he enjoyed following his father around, attending important meetings, and observing how his father interacted with the people. Whenever the king was absent, Kofi would pretend to be the king, relishing in giving orders and feeling significant. Kofi adored living a luxurious life. He had numerous friends, and they often enjoyed themselves, indulging in the finest foods, wearing elegant clothes and playing games in the grand palace. He reveled in being the center of attention and living in opulence. However, Kofi's father, the king, was a wise man. He often reminded Kofi, "My son, you must learn responsibility. A good king is compassionate and cares for his people. You must be humble and ready to serve the village." Though Kofi would nod and agree, he didn't truly absorb his father's words, believing that kingship was about commanding and enjoying the perks of royalty. One day, while with his friends, Kofi exclaimed, "I can't wait to be king. I wish my father would hurry up and make me king already." A friend cautioned, "Kofi, be careful what you wish for." But Kofi dismissed the warning, laughing and continuing to dream of the day he would don the crown and rule the village. Unbeknownst to him, his path to kingship would be fraught with challenges and lessons he couldn't yet foresee. Time passed, and on a sunny day, Kofi was playing by the river with his friends. Amidst their conversation, Kofi sighed and said, "I wish my father would hurry up and die so I can become king." His friends were shocked. One of them, looking around to ensure no one else heard, whispered, "Kofi, do you really want to be king that badly? There's a way to make it happen." Kofi's curiosity was piqued. "What do you mean?" he asked. The friend leaned in and suggested, "You could poison him, give him something that will make him sleep forever. Then you'll be king." Kofi was taken aback. He hesitated, saying, "Poison him? But that's dangerous. What if something goes wrong?" Before the conversation could continue, another friend, Kwame, interjected. "No, Kofi, that's not right. Killing your own father is not the way to become king. You don't have any brothers to compete with. You will be king without doing anything bad." Kofi considered Kwame's advice, knowing he was right, but the desire to be king still burned within him. He nodded and said, "I guess you're right, Kwame. I'll wait." Although he agreed with Kwame, the thought of becoming king sooner lingered in Kofi's mind. He struggled to suppress it, but it persisted, making him restless. He didn't realize that this dangerous desire would lead to even more trouble and difficult choices ahead. In the grand palace, Kofi's mother, the king's first wife, harbored a secret. She loved her son dearly and wanted to ensure he would be the only one to inherit the throne. She remembered when the king began marrying more wives, hoping to have more children, especially sons. Kofi's mother worried. What if one of these new wives bears a son? Kofi will have to compete for the throne. She couldn't allow that. One evening, she decided to visit an herbalist. Disguising herself with a shawl, she left the palace and walked through the village. When she reached the herbalist's hut, she explained her dilemma. The herbalist, an elderly and wise woman, listened intently. "I can help you," she said, "but be aware that this is potent magic. It will prevent any other wife from bearing a male child for the king." Kofi's mother eagerly agreed. "Please do it. I want my son to be the only prince." The herbalist performed a ritual with herbs, chants, and smoke, then gave Kofi's mother a potion, instructing her to pour it into the palace well. When the other wives drink the water, they will not have sons. Following the instructions, Kofi's mother poured the potion into the well and waited. Over the years, each new wife bore daughters, never a son. Kofi remained the sole prince and heir. Kofi's mother felt relieved, thinking, "Now no one will challenge Kofi when he becomes king. I will be the queen mother, and my son will rule the land." Yet, this secret weighed heavily on her. She never told anyone, not even Kofi, watching him grow with the knowledge that she had done something powerful and dangerous to secure his future. As Kofi grew older and more eager to become king, his mother's secret continued to shape their destiny in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. One day, the king needed to travel to a distant village for an important meeting. Before leaving, he instructed Kofi, "My son, remember to be kind and fair while I'm gone. You must take care of our people." Kofi nodded, but inside he was thrilled. "Now I can act like a real king," he thought. As soon as the king left, Kofi gathered his friends and began issuing orders. He went to the market, where the villagers sold their goods, and proclaimed, "I am the acting king now. You must give me a share of your earnings today." The traders were shocked and frightened. They had never seen Kofi behave this way. They tried to protest, but Kofi's guards ensured compliance. Some traders gave him money, while those without money gave him goods. Kofi collected fruits, cloth, and even animals like goats and hens. He and his friends celebrated, feeling powerful and important. The villagers, however, were disheartened and angry. They had worked hard for their earnings, and now the acting king had taken them by force. When the king returned, he listened to the villagers' complaints. They described how Kofi had demanded money and goods, leaving them with little to support their families. The king was deeply saddened by this news. He called Kofi and asked, "My son, what have you done?" Kofi, feeling proud, replied, "I was acting as a king. I took what I deserved." The king shook his head and said, "No, my son. A true king does not take from his people. He serves and protects them." The king then went to the market and compensated the villagers for everything Kofi had taken. He apologized, assuring them it wouldn't happen again. Kofi watched in silence, feeling a mix of shame and anger. He had believed being king meant having power and taking what he wanted, but his father had shown him that true leadership was about kindness and responsibility. This lesson was difficult for Kofi to accept, and it only made him more determined to become king in his own way. Kofi's actions at the market were just the beginning. He relished the feeling of power and sought more. He began doing even worse things, displaying arrogance and a lack of respect for the villagers. Kofi would walk around the village with his guards, eyeing the beautiful girls who lived there. If he fancied a girl, he would point at her and say, "Bring her to the palace. I want to have some fun." The guards, obeying his orders, would take the girl away, no matter how frightened she was. In the palace, Kofi would threaten the girls, saying, "If you tell anyone about this, I will make you a slave here forever and do whatever I want with you." The girls were terrified and remained silent, fearing Kofi's threats. After Kofi was done with them, they would return home, sad and scared. They didn't tell their parents, fearing Kofi's wrath. The village began to sense something was wrong, but no one dared to speak against the prince. Kofi's arrogance grew each day. He believed he could do anything because he was the future king. He didn't care about the villagers' feelings or well-being, only his own pleasure and power. The villagers started losing hope. They had loved their wise and kind king, but now they feared what would happen when Kofi took the throne. The elders whispered among themselves, wondering how to protect the village from the young prince's increasing cruelty. But Kofi was blind to the fear and sadness he caused. He saw only his own desires, believing that being king meant taking whatever he wanted. His actions continued to harm the villagers, and his heart grew colder, drifting further from the lessons his father had tried to teach him. Little did Kofi know, his unchecked power was leading him down a dangerous path, one that would change his life and the village's fate forever. One calm morning, the king sat down for breakfast. He enjoyed a hearty meal and then decided to take a nap. As he lay down, he closed his eyes and drifted into a deep sleep. But this time, he never woke up. The news quickly spread through the village. "The king has passed away." the people whispered, their hearts heavy with sorrow. They loved their king and felt a profound sense of loss. The entire village mourned, and the atmosphere was filled with sadness. But inside the palace, behind closed doors, Kofi and his mother had different feelings. They were secretly rejoicing. Finally, Kofi's wish had come true. He would become the king. Kofi's mother said, "Now, my son, you will be the king, and I will be the queen mother. Our dreams have come true." Kofi, masking his excitement, put on a sorrowful face and joined the villagers in mourning. He and his mother cried bitterly, but inside they were happy knowing their time had come. The following month, a grand ceremony was held to crown Kofi as the new king. The villagers gathered, still grieving the loss of their beloved king, but they were ready to welcome Kofi as their new ruler. To everyone's astonishment, Kofi was calm and kind during the ceremony. He spoke gently to the people, promising to be a good king. He said, "I will maintain peace and order in our village. I will honor my father's legacy and serve you well." The villagers were surprised. They had expected Kofi to be arrogant and cruel, but instead, he seemed transformed. He greeted the elders with respect, played with the children, and listened to the villagers' concerns. For a while, the village was peaceful. Kofi's sudden change in behavior gave everyone hope. They thought perhaps the responsibility of kingship had changed him for the better. The people felt safe and happy again, believing their new king would care for them. But deep down, Kofi harbored a hidden plan. His kindness was a facade, masking his true intentions. He was waiting for the right moment to unveil his dark scheme for the villagers. The calm before the storm was deceptive, and the true test of Kofi's character was yet to come. The villagers were content with their new king. Kofi appeared kind and fair, keeping the village peaceful. Everyone believed he had changed for the better. But they were unaware of Kofi's hidden agenda, a sinister plan that would soon unfold. One day, Kofi gathered the villagers and made an announcement. "My dear people," he said, "I have good news. I want to improve our village by giving some of you a chance to learn new things. I will send a group of young adults to a distant land where they will be educated for 3 months. When they return, they will bring back new knowledge to help our village grow." The villagers were thrilled. They saw this as a wonderful opportunity. Young men and women eagerly volunteered, hoping to be selected for the trip. Kofi chose 10 villagers, 5 boys and 5 girls, and sent them off with promises of a bright future. Every 3 months, Kofi repeated this process. He selected 10 new villagers and sent them away. But something strange began to happen. The villagers who left never returned. Their families grew worried and started questioning the king. One day, a concerned father approached Kofi and asked, "Your Highness, my daughter has been gone for 3 months. When will she return?" Kofi smiled and replied, "Do not worry. They are still learning. They will come back soon with wonderful knowledge and skills." The villagers trusted Kofi and tried to be patient. But as more months passed and more villagers were sent away, the village began to feel empty. There were fewer young people, and the families left behind grew more anxious. A mother with tears in her eyes approached Kofi and asked, "Please, Your Highness, where is my son? I haven't heard from him since he left." Kofi reassured her with a gentle smile. "They are all doing well. They need more time to complete their education. They will return soon, I promise." But deep down, Kofi knew the truth. He wasn't sending the villagers for education. He had made a dark deal with a wealthy man from a distant land. Kofi was selling the villagers, 10 at a time, to this man. The rich man paid him handsomely, and Kofi enjoyed the wealth and power it brought. The villagers, trusting their king, tried to believe his words, but a sense of unease began to spread. They couldn't understand why none of their loved ones had returned. The true horror of Kofi's plan remained hidden, waiting to be uncovered. The village was on the verge of a revelation that would change everything. One scorching afternoon, a wealthy man arrived in the village with a group of strong guards. He wore fine clothes and carried himself with great authority. The villagers stared at him, wondering why such a wealthy stranger had come to their humble village. The rich man demanded to see King Kofi. "Where is your king?" he asked, his voice loud and commanding. The villagers pointed towards the palace, and the rich man marched straight to the entrance. Kofi was in the courtyard, enjoying the day. When he saw the rich man approaching, his face turned pale, but he quickly composed himself. "Welcome to our village," Kofi said, forcing a smile. "How can I help you?" The rich man didn't smile back. Instead, he looked around at the villagers and then back at Kofi. "It's time to collect what is mine," he said firmly. "Gather the rest of the villagers. I have come to claim them." The villagers were confused and scared. They whispered among themselves, wondering what the rich man was talking about. The elders stepped forward and asked, "What do you mean? Why would you claim our people?" The rich man pointed at Kofi and said, "Your king has been selling you to me, 10 at a time. He promised to sell the entire village. Now I am here to take you all." Gasps of shock and horror filled the air. The villagers couldn't believe what they were hearing. They turned to Kofi, their eyes full of anger and betrayal. "Is this true?" they demanded. Kofi tried to speak, but his voice trembled. I can explain," he stammered. The rich man interrupted. "There's nothing to explain. Kofi and I had a deal. He sold you all for money. Ask him yourself." The elders, their faces stern, confronted Kofi. "Is this true? Did you really sell us?" Kofi knew he couldn't hide the truth any longer. He bowed his head in shame and confessed. "Yes, it's true. I sold the villagers to him. I needed the money, and I thought it was the only way." Cries of outrage and disbelief echoed through the village. The people felt betrayed by the one they trusted to protect them. They couldn't understand how Kofi could do something so terrible. The rich man, satisfied that the truth was out, said, "Now gather the rest of the villagers. I have come to take them." But the villagers, united in their anger, stood their ground. "No, we will not go with you," they shouted. They turned to Kofi and said, "You are no longer our king. We will not follow a traitor." Kofi, seeing the fury in their eyes, realized the gravity of his actions. He had lost everything: his power, his people's trust, and his dignity. The village was in turmoil, and the truth had shattered their peace. The rich man's visit had exposed the dark secret, and now the village had to decide what to do next. The village was in chaos. The rich man's revelation had left everyone stunned and angry. The elders demanded answers, and Kofi knew he had to confess everything. With a heavy heart, Kofi began to explain. "Before my father died, this rich man came to our village. He offered my father a large sum of money to buy some of our slaves. But my father was a good and wise king. He refused, saying that our people were not for sale." The villagers listened, their eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Kofi continued. "After my father refused, I approached the rich man in secret. I was eager to become king, and I saw a way to make it happen. We made a terrible plan. The rich man gave me a poison, and I put it in my father's food. When my father ate, he went to sleep and never woke up." Gasps and cries filled the air as the villagers realized the extent of Kofi's betrayal. They couldn't believe that their prince, their future king, had done something so evil. "After my father died," Kofi went on, "I became king, but I didn't stop there. I wanted more money and power, so I made a deal with the rich man. I would sell him not just the slaves, but eventually the entire village. I started by sending 10 villagers at a time, pretending they were going for education." Tears streamed down the faces of the villagers as they thought of their loved ones who had been sent away, never to return. The truth was more painful than they could have imagined. Kofi looked at the ground, unable to meet their eyes. "I know I have done terrible things," he said. "I betrayed my father and I betrayed all of you. I was blinded by my desire for power and wealth, and I didn't think about the harm I was causing. The elders, their faces stern and hearts heavy, stepped forward. "You have not only betrayed us but also dishonored your father's memory," one of them said. "You are no longer fit to be our king." Kofi, filled with regret and shame, nodded. "I understand. I will accept whatever punishment you decide." The rich man, seeing the villagers united and defiant, realized that he would not be able to take them as easily as he had planned. He looked at Kofi with disdain and said, "You have failed, and now you will pay for it." The villagers, with the strength of their unity, drove the rich man and his guards out of the village. They refused to be sold or controlled any longer. They stood together, determined to protect their home and each other. Kofi, stripped of his title and power, was left alone to face the consequences of his actions. He had betrayed his people and his family, and now he had to live with the weight of his choices. The village, though wounded by his betrayal, found strength in their unity and began to rebuild, determined to create a future where no one would ever be sold again. As Kofi finished his confession, the air was thick with tension and sorrow. The villagers stood in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with betrayal. Just then, a figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. Gasps of shock and whispers of ghost filled the air as the villagers recognized the man who stepped forward. It was the king. The villagers couldn't believe their eyes. The king, who they thought had died, stood before them alive and well. He raised his hand to calm the crowd. "I'm not a ghost," he said. "I am very much alive." Kofi's eyes widened in disbelief. "Father, but how?" The king looked at his son with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. "Kofi, this was all a test," he explained. "A test to see if you were worthy of becoming king. Only a few elders and I knew about it." The elders nodded in agreement, stepping forward to stand by the king's side. "We agreed to this plan with the rich man to reveal your true character," one elder said. "We wanted to see if you would rule with wisdom and kindness or with greed and cruelty." The villagers, still in shock, listened intently as the king continued. "We staged my death to observe your actions. We wanted to see if you would honor the responsibilities of a king, or succumb to the temptations of power. Sadly, you chose the latter." Kofi and his mother stood in utter shame. They realized the gravity of their actions and how deeply they had betrayed their people and the king. The king then turned to Kofi's mother. "And you? I know about the herbalist's ritual you performed. I consulted the oracle after I noticed something strange about the births in the palace. The oracle revealed everything." Kofi's mother, knowing she could no longer hide, began to cry. "Yes, it's true," she confessed. "I did visit the herbalist to ensure no other wife would bear a male child. But there is more you should know." The crowd fell silent, waiting for her to continue. "Kofi is not your son," she said, her voice trembling. "When I was young, before you became king, I was in love with a palm wine tapper. I got pregnant by him. When I heard you would become king, I broke up with the palm wine tapper and forced the pregnancy on you so I could enjoy the royal life." The villagers gasped in shock, and Kofi looked at his mother in disbelief. "Mother, how could you do this?" he asked, his voice filled with pain. She continued, tears streaming down her face. "I did not want to leave the life of luxury, so I made sure the other princesses could not give birth to a male child. I did everything to secure my place in the palace." After hearing all this, the king then turned to the villagers. "I know you have suffered because of Kofi's actions, but I am here to make things right. We will bring back every villager who was sold. No one will be left behind." The villagers cheered, their spirits lifting at the king's promise. The rich man, who had been watching from the sidelines, knew he had not lost because he was in on the plan all from the start. The king's authority and the villagers' unity were too strong for him to challenge. The king then faced Kofi and his mother. You have both brought shame upon this village and upon our family. As your punishment, you are banished from this village. You will leave at once and never return." Kofi and his mother, filled with regret and sorrow, bowed their heads. They knew they deserved this punishment. Without another word, they left the village, leaving behind the life they had once known. The king, with the help of the elders and the villagers, worked tirelessly to bring back all those who had been sold. Slowly, the village began to heal. Families were reunited, and the bonds of trust and love grew stronger than ever. The villagers, grateful for the return of their wise and kind king, vowed to protect their home and each other. They had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of true leadership and the dangers of greed and betrayal. And so the village thrived once more, with the king leading them with the wisdom and kindness that had always been his hallmark. The memory of Kofi's betrayal faded, replaced by the strength and unity of a community that had faced its darkest times and emerged stronger than ever. Moral of the story: true leadership is not about seeking power and wealth for oneself, but about serving and protecting one's people with kindness and integrity. Greed and betrayal only lead to downfall and sorrow, while honesty, unity, and selflessness create a strong and thriving community. True worthiness comes from one's actions and character, not from birthright or ambition. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.